Combined, Prez Buck Piericini and Tom Hammer Hamre have over 100 years of baseball experience. Now in their early 60s, both have adopted vintage baseball as a way to get back to the roots of the game. That, and keep playing the sport they love so much.
My baseball career goes back to, 1954. And I have never not been on a baseball team since 1954. Every year of my life, I've been on a baseball team. I'm 60 years old and I'm on 4 teams. God bless my wife.
One of those teams is the Whately Pioneers vintage baseball team, a group of 15 self-described baseball fanatics. Despite spanning from Northampton all the way up to Vermont and aged 19 to 61, the Pioneers have one important thing in common: a love of baseball. They love baseball so much, in fact, that they've gone back to the 19th century to play in the New England Vintage Baseball League. And it's safe to say that they're hooked.
It was actually our second time I played vintage, and the jury was still out on whether or not I liked it better than modern ball. We were going to play in Westfield, and we were going, and that wasn't really a baseball field, it was just an open grass field. We went through a bunch of trees and stuff, and we came out there, and it was like literally like Field of Dreams. You walk out there, the field lines are all painted, there's bags out there. It was like stepping back into time, and it was a real cool moment, and it was a really great area. The wheelmen are great guys too, and from that game I was hooked on it.
Vintage and modern baseball have some major differences, the most obvious of which involve the equipment itself. Vintage players swing heavy wooden bats. The gloves aren't much bigger than the player's hands, and the ball used is softer and not surprisingly more aged than today's version. And it's those very differences that have made most pioneers realize that vintage is tougher than meets the eye.
And I thought it was kind of like almost softball. I thought it was a lot of older guys that were kind of throwing underhand, kind of like almost like a joke, and I didn't really want to waste my time doing it, to be honest with you. But I found out you have to be twice as good a ball player to be able to play in the sport, because you really have no glove. You're using ancient bats and stuff and different balls, and you really got to be a player to be able to play in this, and that's what I like about it.
Not to mention the code of ethics that comes with it. Vintage follows the rules of the 1880s, when players addressed the umpire as sir, and when cussing or showboating were forbidden. At the time, baseball was known as a gentleman's game. But interestingly, today's version of vintage, Whately's version at least, breaks from tradition. It includes someone that wasn't there the first time around, a woman. A Northampton woman who, like her male counterparts, is a die-hard baseball fanatic, and who also realizes just how tough the sport really is.
It's completely pretty much a different sport to me, because you don't have the web, but still you have to play fundamentals. You have to square yourself. If it's a grounder, you have to square your body in front of the ball, and all the throws have to be pretty much accurate. When we learned how to throw when we were all young, you either throw at the chest, but in vintage, actually, it seems like throwing at the head is the best bet, because you're not going to miss that ever.
Despite the challenging nature of vintage, Buck says that it's the game's timelessness that keeps the players on the field, and it's what he and his time-traveling pioneers love most about it.
You could look at these pictures in 100 years from now, and people will be playing baseball and will understand those pictures perfectly. It will make total sense to them. It won't look like something that you used to do 100 years ago. It's something that you do right now.
And for right now, the Whately Pioneers, Buck, Hammer, Spider, and Albie, are happy playing the game they love so much. Modern, vintage, as long as it's baseball. For GazetteNET.com, this is Jillian Kessler-DeMore.